Decide which way your paper needs to go based on your still life. Now I printed off a picture of my still life so that way you can see what I'm working from as I'm working and have it projected. One of the things that I like to kind of note on my paper is where my halfway points are because I'm always comparing where the objects are placed in my image, so that way as I'm working on my paper I can make sure I'm getting it in the same spot. So if it helps you to fold your paper as a starting point so you know where the halfway point in your drawing is, feel free to do that. Sometimes in photos you can add guidelines to your photos. So sometimes they use the rule of thirds and divide it into thirds. So if that's what you want to do, you can fold it however you want to get those guidelines. Some students pull the photo into another app and draw the lines for the halfway point. But it just helps you kind of have a better sense of space when you have those marks. So one of the first things that I notice that students do when they're drawing is they commit to an area and they really draw lots of detail there and it looks awesome. But then as they start drawing, all of a sudden their drawing is too small to fit the space. Or part of the object is super small, part of the object over here is super big, and it doesn't match what they're seeing in their photo. So when you start drawing from observation, I want you to get your big shapes in place first. So when I look here at my object, when I look at Mr. Potato Head here, I can see that his hat starts a little past the halfway point here. So if this is my halfway here on my paper, and this is the halfway point on my picture, I can see that I need to start Mr. Potato Head's hat somewhere about here. And then I can look and see, okay, if this is my halfway point here, I make another halfway point here. So about 1/4 of the way down would be where I'm seeing his hat come down, maybe a little bit above that. So his hat's going to end somewhere about there. And then I can look and see how much space from the edge of the picture to the edge of his hat. So I would say his hat's going to end somewhere in here is kind of my rough guess. Okay. Then I can start in on the shape of Mr. Potato Head. So I can look and see, okay, I see the brown of Mr. Potato Head starting about 1/4 of the way down. And then here it comes about 1/3 of the way down from this halfway point of my paper. So if I look, here's the halfway point, I would say his body's going to about here. Okay, so now that I have those kind of in place, I can sketch out, even if I can't see the whole thing, I can kind of sketch where I think Mr. Potato Head's going to fall. So that gives me a general size to work from. So I'm just working my way around, bringing it back over. And then I can kind of check to see, okay, does that look like kind of the size that I would need for the ear? Maybe that looks a little bit too small for the hat, so I'm going to bring the hat over. And I'm going to adjust this line for Mr. Potato Head. He needs to be a little bit closer to the side. When I look at the space here, this looks a little bit closer, so I can adjust that. And then where I have my extra lines, I can just go ahead and erase. Now this is a thinner paper. You want to be careful that you don't rip it. If it does rip, just get a piece of tape, tape it on the back side and keep going. But you don't want to have really aggressive pencil moves or erasing moves. So then now I can go back in and I can kind of roughen the shape of the hat. So I can see the brim of the hat starting here, the top of the hat coming up. I can see the curve of the hat coming down, and it comes up just a little bit over here. So I've got my basic sketch of the hat in place. Oops, sorry, can't see that there. Basic sketch of the hat in place. Then I come down a little bit. So for the ear, I see it coming out and over to the side. And then I can look and see about how far down on Mr. Potato Head the ear goes. So looking at this, it's about halfway down. So the bottom of the ear would be somewhere in here. It's a pretty big ear. So I'm just roughing that into place. Then the glasses I see coming from here, they come up. And I see them starting a little bit past the halfway point. So I can look, here's my halfway point. So I would see them come to the edge here. and then I see it angle over, and I see kind of this shape here, and then I see it angle back towards the ear. I can see maybe I started the ear up a little bit too high, so I can adjust that line. And then for the glasses, I can see I want this coming in, it comes back out, and then it comes over, and it goes a ways off of his face, and then it comes back around and comes back in. So I'm starting to get the shape of the glasses there. I'm not going to spend time on the eyes just yet. So then I move on and I look. I'm like, okay, so there's a little bit of a gap here. I can sketch in where I think his nose might go. So I can get just the general shape. It's pretty big. In there, I can sketch in, okay, I see the mustache coming down. It curves up. It comes over even further from the nose, something like this. Then I see the tongue, and it is falling in line here. So I think my mustache might be a little too short, so I'm going to bring this down. So looking at my picture, I can see this is falling halfway. Here's my fold line for the halfway. So now I can get the tongue shape in place here. Then for the base, I start to see the blue of his pants and shoes. So I can kind of sketch that in. How much blue am I seeing? Okay. Then I start to see the tip of his shoes peeking out. And his shoe, his top shoe here, if I look at how it's lining up, it kind of lines up with the edge of the nose, but it doesn't come out as far as the tongue or the mustache. So that helps me see, kind of give me a guide of how far I need to make my lines come out. And then I can bring it down and then angle this over. And then I see the other shoe start to come out. And then here I'm starting to see where the timer is at. So I can kind of sketch in where the top of the timer is at, and I can look at the angle of the timer. Okay, so I'm trying to get this in place in the correct angle. And then I can show the base is going off the page here. And then I can see maybe the shoe isn't quite long enough, so I could adjust that. Here would be where the sole would be, and it would actually be curving up. So the shoe would look something more like this. And then from behind here, I start to see the other shoe peeking out and coming up and around. So I start to draw what I'm seeing for that one. But notice I'm not getting caught up in teeny tiny details like all the lines of the mustache, those types of things. Then I can show where I see the dice at. It's at a slight angle. So here's the front of the dice, here's the side of the dice, here's the top of the dice. And I can look, does that look like the correct size, or is it too big? Okay, what about where I'm seeing the clue pieces? One's going off the page, so I can kind of sketch that in, and then where's the other one? Well, now I'm noticing it's too close to my shoe. So maybe I need to bring the shoe in just a little bit more. So that's why I'm saying don't commit to anything and spend too much time in one spot until you have it all mapped out. And then once you do that, that's when you can come back in and be like, okay, here's where I see every little curve of the mustache. Here's where I'm seeing those highlights. Here's where I see the highlight on the nose. Here's where I see the details in the glasses. So this would be where the opening is. Then here's where I see the eye. Here's where I see the black shape within the eye with the curve here. So that's when you would come back and really refine and make it look as accurate as possible. Okay. Again, keep your proportions in mind. So when I'm looking at this, I can tell right now I got it a little bit too wide at the top here, so I need to adjust that before I go any further. So keep checking back from your image. Keep asking yourself, are things the right size compared to the other things in the object?